Welcome to Sharika Talks, Unraveling the Truth, a journalist's quest. Subscribe for the truth.
Chapter 9, Call Storm. Where are you, cunt? Are you dead? If yes, that's the best thing that's happened to me, this company, and this whole world. Unusually tall and strikingly lean for an Indian woman, Sukanya R, Nair, the 32-year-old CEO of DWIG, rarely lost her temper. Her calm, calculated demeanor, paired with a razor-sharp intellect and piercing gaze, made her one of the most respected corporate faces in India. But now, pacing barefoot through the polished wooden floors of her Bengaluru penthouse, wearing a loose cotton kurta and holding her phone like it was about to crack in her palm, she was fuming. She had been trying to contact her best friend for 3 days. No calls, no messages. The same best friend she had known since first standard. Sachin, the one person she trusted more than herself. The only one who knew every detail of her life, and vice versa. Meanwhile, Sachin sat on the corner of the train's side lower berth, his bag placed neatly beside him. He leaned close to the window, angling his head to keep his voice from carrying. His tone was hushed, deliberate. He glanced at Sharika across the seat, seemingly lost in her phone, but Sachin wasn't taking any chances. Not now. Chugru, I can't even say please calm down. I'm sorry, it was such a situation. I'll explain everything once we meet. It was a now or never decision. Everything was at stake, he said carefully. For the kids, I'll arrange a flight. It'll even be more exciting for the... Shut the bloody up, she snapped, pacing to the edge of her sunlit balcony. Don't throw that PR-grade bullshit onto me, Sachin. You were the one who lectured me about team spirit and bonding when I offered to charter a flight for them. You convinced me that a train would help them build camaraderie, reduce anxiety, and now what? That just goes out the window? I know, Sachin said quickly. It was a last-minute development, something I found out only days ago. It wasn't safe for the kids anymore to travel with me. But I couldn't afford to miss this train either. I had to move. It was too dangerous. That's why I stayed behind. But I made sure one of the Sixers, Reshmi, went with them. The Sixers are the only reason I haven't lost my mind yet, Sukanya interrupted, exhaling forcefully. Reshmi's with them, I know. There was a pause on the line. Not silence, but a weighted moment where both of them tried to measure how much to say. Do you want anyone else sent to Delhi? Aishwarya, Sachin answered without hesitation. I'll call her later. Again, another brief pause. I was worried, Sachu. That's all, Sukanya finally muttered, voice softening. You know how I get when you go dark. I don't want to lose you. Not again. I know, Chugru, and I wasn't planning to disappear. You know how much I care for the kids. There was no time, and it was too much. There are just things money can't buy, things I couldn't ignore. I'll explain everything. Even if something had happened to me, the Sixers were prepared. You know that. Everything was in place. I know, she whispered, and I trust you. But don't pull this again. I won't, he said. Say hi to Kingini when she wakes up, Sachin added, referring to Sukanya's daughter. I will. Take care, and please pick up my calls next time. The line disconnected. For a moment, Sukanya stood still, phone still clutched to her ear. Her mind wandered, not to the boardroom or the office, but back to a dusty schoolyard, to shared lunchboxes, scraped knees, and stolen chalks. She believed him. She always did. Back on the train, Sachin ended the call slowly. He stared at the name flashing on his screen. Chugru. He smiled, just for a second. No one else ever called her that. Sukanya hated nicknames, too messy, too intimate, too unprofessional. But she'd never been able to erase that one. He had given it to her when they were 6. A mashed-up version of her full name and the sound of her scolding him after he broke her first pencil. Back then, she hated him for calling her that. Now she was his only lifeline. Then, with a tired exhale, he reached into his bag and unscrewed the cap of his disguised Bacardi bottle. He took a small sip. His throat was dry, but his heart was steadying now. He needed real water soon. He closed the bottle carefully and brushed his fingers across the hidden compartment in his bag, the package still resting safely inside. He could feel its shape through the fabric. Cold, heavy, alive with secrets. He let his palm linger on it for a second longer than necessary. The weight of the last 48 hours wasn't just physical. It was spiritual, emotional, historical. He adjusted his breath. Now wasn't the time to reflect. Now was the time to survive. Just then, he dialed a new number, Reshmi, Sixers. She picked up on the first ring. Reshmi here. How are the kids? Still asleep at the dormitory. I've been keeping them engaged. Should we wait for another train, or are you planning something else? Charter a flight to Delhi. Make sure they reach by tomorrow night. I'll be there to receive them. Tell the kids I was held up. Aishwarya will also be there with me. Take them out for a small activity today. Keep them excited. Understood. Anything else? No. There was a pause. Then she asked, May I know where you are and what happened? I'm en route to Delhi, Sachin replied briefly. She understood. No more questions. All right, I'll keep you updated. Sachin ended the call and leaned forward, elbows on knees. His body still ached. He cursed himself. Falling asleep on a berth soaked in dirt and dried blood had been idiotic. If the RPF had passed by, if the TTE had noticed, if they had any tip-offs from the capital, one slip and everything could have collapsed. The last 2 weeks leading up to this had been nonstop. He hadn't slept for days, awake for the past 96 hours straight. Boarding the train had been the final sprint. It was 12:30 p.m. Thiruvananthapuram Central was drowned in rain. The skies had cracked open, and the city was gasping under sheets of water. Streets became rivers. Gutters overflowed. The storm made it impossible to see more than a few meters ahead. Sachin stood hidden near the tracks far from the platforms, somewhere between forgotten fencing and tall grass, mud lapping at his shoes. He couldn't risk entering through the station. Too many cameras. Too many eyes, too much at stake. He stood silent in the downpour, reading each train name as they passed. Eyes scanning, heart thrumming, then Kerala Express. His heart seized. No platform, no guards, just gravel. Steel, and a rain-beaten window of seconds. He ran. His boots splashed through the red puddles like war paint in the mud. He sprinted alongside the moving train, eyes squinting against the downpour. Every second mattered. His hand reached for a steel handle, slippery, cold. His foot caught the step. The train rocked. Then impact. He collapsed just inside, crumpled against the vestibule wall, panting like a dying animal. Mud caked on his clothes, blood already drying on his palm. For half a moment, he thought he might black out for good. Somehow, even in that haze, he'd reloaded his Glock. 2 bullets replaced from the carton of 50 in his bag. Muscle memory. He had no recollection of getting up, no memory of climbing into the nearest berth. He probably hadn't. Just collapsed onto it. And slept, the luckiest 15 hours of his life. And then the girl had fallen on him. Sharika. If she hadn't, if the snatcher had killed her and left her body beside him and the RPF found them together, he didn't want to imagine the fallout. Now, she was opposite him, fully absorbed in her phone. He glanced once, then twice. She looked harmless. But Sachin knew better than to underestimate anyone. Still, perhaps she could be useful if the situation demanded it. He straightened up and opened his email app, catching up on the reports and pending approvals he'd neglected during his unexpected detour. All the while, Sharika sat across from him, casually flipping through tabs. But her screen had paused a second ago. She had seen it. 251 missed calls. Sharika raised an eyebrow. Who the hell gets 251 missed calls? She thought. From someone named Chugru, no less? Who even is this guy? Just a karate instructor? And now she was pretending not to watch him, but her mind had begun to trace threads that no one else had seen. End of chapter 9.
Thank you for watching Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest. Subscribe to stay updated on Sharika's journey. Stay tuned for the next part.
Disclaimer. Unraveling the Truth, A Journalist's Quest is a work of fiction. The experiences, ideas, and theories presented by the characters, including the books they write, are purely fictional and do not reflect real-world events, beliefs, or ideologies. While some incidents and characters may be inspired by real-world scenarios, they are entirely fictionalized for storytelling purposes. The author does not endorse or share the viewpoints expressed by any character in this novel. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion